Good morning, neighborhood. How we doing? Baptisms are so cool, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of a church that just, man, it seems like we're consistently baptizing people, and it's just so fun to hear their stories of life change, and it's really exciting. And if you've not ever been baptized, and you're like on Team Jesus, there is no reason not to. So I want to encourage you to go to the next lounge and say, I want to get baptized. And we'll make sure we find a Sunday and get you in the tank up here. So, hey, a couple of quick things before we dive into today's content. Just going to lean into a couple of different commercials. We have a lot going on around here at Neighborhood Church. Shelly mentioned a lot of it. What I'd like to add is our launch of a campus in Kingsburg. That's still, in the development. We're moving there. Our first service is planned right now for December 7th. And many of you, in fact, hundreds of you, are on the interest list for our Kingsburg campus. And so I want to encourage you, if you're not on and you want more updates, kind of what's going on more than we're ever going to provide from up here on a Sunday morning, I want to encourage you to sign up and be a part of the interest list. That's how you get invited to things. Like upcoming is in a couple of weeks, we've got a dinner, sort of a catered dinner and worship and prayer night for our campus that we're going to be launching. And man, we'd love to have you there. But again, sort of the way to RSVP and get all of that information is through the interest list. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, you can go to the For Kingsburg table that's out on the patio. And I do want to echo what Shelly talked about in the video. The nonprofit we started a few years back, Neighborhood Degrees, it's really become our compassion arm here at Neighborhood Church. They spearhead much of the work we're doing in our city. And now is the time. I mean, they are signing people up right now to help, and they've got a spot for you. We've got programs in elementary, programs in middle school, programs in high school where we kind of mentor kids and get them to and through college or trade school of their choice. Soccer coaching. I mean, there's just a million ways to stay connected. And if you can give 1 hour twice a month, you can make a difference. I mean, you really can have an impact in our city and in the life of a kid. And around here, we just think the next generation is, well, it's everything. And so we want to lean in. If it's kids here at our church or just anywhere in our city and county, we want to do whatever we can to influence them and move them and help them win. And we'd love to have your help. So if you have any interest at all, the neighborhood degree table will be out on our patio, and we'd love for you to just go ask questions, sign up, and start making a difference. So, okay, there's the commercials. For this morning, we are starting a brand new teaching series that we're calling Staring at the Ceiling, where we just sort of want to tackle head on some of those existential questions that come along with us not being able to sleep. We're sitting there middle of the night just staring at the ceiling, and our mind will not stop running. As I sat down to think about this series, I couldn't help but remember my junior year in high school. I don't know what your junior year in high school was like, but I had an English teacher that was just all about Shakespeare, and it was really the first time I was ever introduced to Shakespeare. I'm by no means a Shakespeare expert, but there is a few moments in some of the Shakespeare plays that I really can't get out of my head. And one of them, of course, comes from Hamlet. And specifically, there's an iconic scene in Hamlet. Perhaps it's the most iconic scene in like all of literature. And even if you don't know anything about Hamlet, you are mildly familiar with the monologue I'm going to show you in just a moment. And it is this moment where Prince Hamlet finds himself sort of completely undone by the weight of his life. And he's standing there, but you get this sense he's sort of like his soul is being very loud. And he just spills out these words I'm sure you've heard before. To be or not to be? That is the question. Who's heard that phrase. Yeah, I mean, you've all heard that. If you haven't heard that phrase, you need to get out a lot more. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing them, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say, we end. And he goes on with lots of things, for in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. What I love about this monologue is I think what Shakespeare is sort of capturing here is not just the drama of death, but the ache that oftentimes comes with being alive. And this is the heart of our teaching series, Staring at the Ceiling. It's just looking at those moments long after the world has gone quiet, but there is a reel playing nonstop in our head, just replaying again and again. Maybe it's our mistakes. Maybe it's what's happened, what you're afraid might happen. I mean, right, it's just a lot going on. It's the question, I think, that Hamlet is voicing in this scene, that we've all asked in one way or another. Is all of this worth it? Can I keep doing this? How do I carry what I'm carrying? Life feels heavy. Now, maybe you don't get a castle like Hamlet, but you've been in the dark room. The clock says 2:13 a.m., and the ceiling is getting all of your attention. And to make it worse, the ceiling never talks back. Just sits there staring at you, amplifying the dread you're feeling in that moment, right? You're stuck in thought, you're stuck in fear, you're stuck in silence. And here's the thing, not a modern problem. I mean, this isn't like unique to 21st century Americans. I mean, people have been staring at the ceiling since there's been ceilings. People have been wondering about their life and the ache of life. In fact, there's this really ancient document that has made its way into the Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament. And this document, we've named it after the sort of main character in the story, and it's Job. And this document, it tells the story of Job, and it's really a story about suffering. It's a story about questions. It's a story about staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, wondering what the heck's going on with you. And Job, if you're unfamiliar with the story, is a good man. In fact, the story opens by literally saying, there's nobody like this guy on planet Earth. He's the best, right? He's faithful and he's honest and he's just and he's generous. And if anybody deserves a good life, it is this guy, Job. And yet, for him, everything falls apart. In a series sort of just like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch, Job loses his wealth, he loses his health, he loses his children. I mean, all of it. And he is in this, as you might imagine, very raw, exhausted, confused space. And he can't sleep. In fact, here's what we're told in the story. When I lie down, this is Job talking, when I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on and I toss and turn until dawn. I'm pretty sure all of us can relate to Job. 4,000 years ago in the ancient Middle East, people felt the torture of the sleepless night and the many questions that accompany that moment. So this series, Staring at the Ceiling, it's for you. It's for you because you've been there. It's for you because you're there now. You're in the middle of your staring at the ceiling, sleepless nights. Or this series for you if you are about to be there. Over the next few weeks, we are going to talk about what happens when the stillness of night makes everything louder. The doubts, the grief, the regrets, the questions. And we're gonna ask, where is God in that hell? Where is God when my thoughts won't stop and I can't sleep? What do I do when my sleep is elusive, but my pain is not? Is there hope in the dark? And we don't have all the answers. I'm not going to answer every single question that you have. But what I did want to approach this series with is faith. Faith that God does not leave us alone in the middle of our sleepless nights, in the middle of our questions. I did want to approach this series with the belief that our ceilings might be silent, but heaven is never silent. And this morning, I want to kick off our series by looking at a question that I think many of us have asked during those sleepless nights. How did I get here? How did I get here? And this isn't like a family of origin, sort of ancestry.com. How did I get here? Not that. This is the version of that question that digs deeper. How did I get here? Those dreams that didn't quite work out. The choices that you made that didn't take you where you thought they would. The hope you held on to that still hasn't come true. The mistakes you've made you wish you could take back. In a word this morning, what I'd like to talk about for just a few moments is regret. Regret. What is it that you regret? When it's 2 a.m. and you can't sleep, what is the moment you wish you could undo and relive? What's that moment? Because I think for many of us, the primary reason we're not sleeping is not because we're unsure of the future, but because we are haunted by our past. The decisions we'd give anything to undo, and the moments we'd give anything to relive. The words we wish we could unsay. The choices we would absolutely do different if we were ever given the chance. There's a great book out there on regret you should absolutely read. It's called The Power of Regret by a guy named Daniel Pink. And here's how he describes regret. The stomach-churning feeling that the present would be better and the future brighter if only you hadn't chosen so poorly, decided so wrongly, or acted so stupidly in the past. That about sums it up, doesn't it? And how many of you have been there in the middle of the night, wondering about your choices, your decisions, your behavior? And you've asked, how did I get here? All of this actually reminds me, I think if you've come to the neighborhood for any amount of time, I'm a big baseball fan, and particularly the San Diego Padres. Nobody cares about the Dodgers. And Giants are fine. Dodgers are, they're regrettable. Anyway, I digress. But from baseball, there's a great baseball legend. His name's Mickey Mantle. But he is a poster child for regret. In fact, the biography, his biographer is a woman named Jane Levy, and she wrote a book called The Last Boy. And in the book, she really leans into his last press conference in 1995, July 11, 1995. And the room's packed. Mantle, if you've ever seen him in an interview, he's just very quick-witted, great with the crowd, great with reporters. And he still is. In 1995, still very witty, very great with reporters, but his body's a shadow of what it once was. He's like wearing a tracksuit, and it's like hanging off his body. It's just, he's clearly worn down primarily by decades of alcoholism. And in his press conference, he says these words: God gave me a great body and the ability to play baseball. God gave me everything, and I just wasted it. That line hit people hard in the moment, but what he said next hit even harder. If you're looking for a role model, this is a role model. Don't be like me. One reporter asked him a very weird question in this press conference. Asked him if he was an organ donor, if he was signed up to be an organ donor. And Mantle responded this way: "Everything I've got is worn out, but I've heard people say they'd like to have my heart, but it's never been used." That's what regret sounds like. I mean, it's honest, it's very raw, but it's also incredibly heartbreaking. A man who had everything. I mean, literally one of the greatest people to ever play the game of baseball. He had everything: fame, money, all of it, everything. But in the end, he felt like he had nothing left, nothing but regret. It's that kind of regret. I mean, the Mickey Mantle kind of regret. I mean, this is very heavy, right? It's very deep. And that kind of regret does not go away easy. And I know that's like a super dark story I just shared with you, and you're like, geez, Forrest. Like, I get it. You're like, I have regrets, but that's not my press conference, right? I get it. And truthfully, not all regret is Mickey Mantle regret, right? I mean, some of it is just kind of dumb, but it's regret nonetheless. I mean, some of you, in fact, I would say most of us in this room regret saying the same thing. And here's the thing we've said: come on over, make yourself at home. How many of you are like, I should have never said that? That led to the worst weekend of my life. I used to like my in-laws until, right? You know, listen, it's why they made hotels. So people who want to visit you can stay in one down the street. Because they actually did a survey. Pretty much, we all regret saying, come on over, make yourself at home. They did a survey, they surveyed 2,000 people. 72% of the people they surveyed regretted saying, make yourself at home. Because what happens when you say that is people overstay their welcome. They expect more from you than you thought you were gonna have to give. Maybe it's more meals, maybe it's more time, maybe it's, whatever it is. Just emotionally, you're kind of like, oh, when are they leaving, right? They made a mess of your house. Maybe they broke something, right? I've got a friend, every single time I swear this guy comes to my house, something breaks. Like he's just a mess, right? Whatever it is, these people have turned your cozy weekend into a stress test. And you regretted having them. But you looked right at them when they left and you said, oh, it was so great having you. Can't wait to see you next year. This is why we say holidays are so stressful. Why? Because that's when family comes to town. That's when you say more often, come on over. And yet, we always regret it. Not always, but often. In fact, 91% of people who offered that warm, welcoming invitation ended up wishing they hadn't. Just ended up wishing they hadn't, right? And then it's complicated, right? Because you're not letting strangers in. The people you're letting into your house, like, you love these people. They're your family. They're your close friends. They're people you have shared experience with. And then they move into your house for a few days and you're like, I wish we would have never shared that experience together, right? My point. Whether it's a messy house or a messy past, regret shows up. Regret shows up when something gets in that we didn't expect and didn't want, and stays often longer than we wanted. That's regret. And we all have it. And whether you're sitting here in the room, you're watching us over at Connect Coffee or online, there's one thing we all have in common. We've all got something in our past we wish we could undo. Some of it, oftentimes, it's laughable, right? The awkward years, right? Some bad decisions you made that didn't have, very real consequences. Maybe it was your haircut in middle school, whatever it is. But some of it some of it you don't talk about. Because it still carries weight. Because it still stings. Still keeps you up at night, staring at the ceiling, asking, how did I get here? We all have regret. That's not the problem. Regret isn't the problem. That's just being a human being. The problem is when it happens when we don't have anywhere to take that regret. When we feel like we have to carry it alone. Having regret, join the club of breathing humans. We start staring at the ceiling when we don't have anywhere to put that regret. When we can't grow from our regret. When we can't find clarity from our regret. When our regret brings nothing but sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, just chaos, and it grows and it festers and it becomes another bad decision and another bad decision, and it's just sort of snowballed, and now you've spent a decade, you look back and go, I wish I could. But what if there is a place, a safe place, we could take all of it, all the regret, all the guilt, all the shame, all the stuff we wish we could, unlive and redo. What if there was a place we could take that? And that's what I want to talk about for just a couple of minutes by sharing with you a story of a man named Peter. Now, Peter lived 2,000 years ago in an incredibly rural part of northern Israel in a sleepy little fishing village. But his story, I think, is as relatable today as it ever has been. See, what's interesting about Peter's story is that one day he's just busy doing his fishing thing, living in a tiny, sleepy village on the shore of a lake. But one day he bumps into this wandering rabbi named Jesus. And this introduction, it completely changes his life. Upends his life. And he actually becomes, this guy Peter, one of the first followers of Jesus, one of Jesus' closest confidants. He becomes one of the most, if not the most important voice in the early church. In fact, still today, there is, kind of the unofficial center of global Christianity is named after him. St. Peter's Basilica in the heart of Rome. That's Peter's church. But Peter's story was not a straight line from, I met Jesus and now I'm the center of global Christianity and kind of a big deal. His story was anything but straight. He believed rather quickly, but then he doubted and unbelieved and he failed a lot. And then he wound up believing again after a series of ups and downs and all arounds, and more specifically, after some significant moments in his life that led to a lot of regret. And we know, here's what's fascinating about Peter's life. We know he had deep regret because he told us he had deep regret. There's actually a document. Now you may not know this. But everything we know about Jesus, for the most part, comes from what today we call the Gospels. They're essentially the biographies of the life of Jesus. 4 have survived history. And they're named after their authors: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What's interesting about Mark and his gospel, his biography of the life of Jesus, is that technically he did do the writing, but it's not his story. Mark is actually John Mark, and he was a close companion to Peter, and he was Peter's scribe. The biography of Jesus' life that we call Mark is actually Peter's story. And at the heart of Peter's story is a powerful message that your past might always be a reminder, but it does not have to define you. That your regret is more human than you think. It doesn't have to lead to more regret. There's a place you can take your regret and learn from it and grow from it, find healing and peace in the midst of it. That's Peter's story. And I just want to tell you Peter's story today. Because I have to imagine, I've never dictated a biography of somebody else's life to somebody else, and they wrote it down. But I have to imagine, 2,000 years ago, Peter is sitting with his friend and confidant, John Mark, and he's dictating his story with Jesus to John Mark. And John Mark's writing it down. And they must come to the part where Peter blows it so big, right in front of Jesus, no less, where John Mark had to at least pause and just ask Peter, "Are you sure? Like, this is gonna get out, dude. People are gonna know. This is gonna be read. Are you sure you want to put this part in the story?" And I can almost hear Peter saying, "We have to put this part in the story. People gotta know. They gotta know grace and love are so much bigger than regret. And that the grace and love of Jesus is a very safe place you can put the worst moment of your life, because that's what he did. And I think more than just tell us the story of Jesus, Peter wanted to tell us something about all of the moments that we want to unlive and redo. So imagine with me for just a moment. It's the night of Jesus' arrest. He's been arrested. Peter, at this point, has already attacked a soldier who is coming to arrest Jesus. Cut his ear off. Gets scolded by Jesus. Don't do that. That's not how we operate. Jesus is now in front of what would be the Supreme Court, if you will. This time in the history of Israel, it's incredibly corrupt. They don't care for Jesus. They are looking to put this guy down. Here's what happened. Here's how Peter tells the story. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin, that would be the Supreme Court, were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not disagree. And eventually the high priest, sort of the big dog of this group, had enough. He gets sort of right in Jesus' face and he just demands, "Answer me. Are you not going to answer? I mean, these people are saying lots of really bad things about you. What are you going to say to it?" And Jesus says nothing. I mean, not a word. And let me add, Peter is like steps away from all of this. I mean, he's kind of watching it on the periphery. And Jesus is saying nothing, not a word. And the silence actually drives these guys absolutely mad. They're used to being feared and obeyed and respected. And now there's this like heretic, carpenter, kind of wandering guy, Jesus, who's just like, won't even defend himself. It's driving him crazy. So the high priest, he comes at him again, this time with the biggest question of all. "Look, do you think you're the Messiah? Do you think you're the guy that all of Israel's been waiting for hundreds of years? That you're the chosen one of God that's gonna come and like fix it all? Are you that guy?" Finally, Jesus responds and says, "I am." At this, the high priest absolutely loses it, right? We're told he like tears his clothes. He just starts screaming. I mean, he's just a maniac. And then he says this, "So why do we need any more witnesses? You've heard the blasphemy from this guy's mouth. What do you think? What should we do with Jesus?" And everybody, of course, agrees. It's why they came there. Jesus is worthy of death. Let's get this guy killed. Let's bring the Romans in. Let's do this. And the floodgates open at that point. Everybody just goes mad. They begin to spit on Jesus. They blindfold him. They start hitting him with their fists. And to mock him, they're like, "Yeah, if you're the Messiah, tell us, which one's hitting you. Prophesy, prophesy." He's taken away. He's beaten. I mean, this is a moment of intense chaos and brutality. I think it's easy. I do. I think it's so easy to just sort of skim past this. Like, okay, kind of weird details of the story. But don't, because Peter's writing this, remember. And he's watched it. And I think it adds to his regret. I think it's why we're getting these kinds of details. He saw Jesus mocked. He saw him humiliated. He saw him beaten from just a few steps away, warming himself by a fire. And this next part. This is the part I'm confident Peter insists to John Mark. We have to put this part in the story. People have to know that on the night Jesus is arrested and executed, there were no heroes. We all regret that night. So here's what Peter wrote. I had John Mark write. While I was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw me warming myself, she looked closely at me. You also were with that Nazarene, Jesus, she said, but I denied it. And Peter at this point panics. He actually gets up, he walks away from the fire, I think maybe hoping the shadows would hide his face. But the girl follows him. She's rather persistent. Again, she said to kind of now everybody standing around, this fellow, he's one of them. But again, Peter denies it. Then the others join in. They see, you know what, I think this girl's right. Right? So they start, surely you're one of them, right? You're a Galilean. I mean, we can hear it in your voice, right? But then Peter responds most emphatically, all right? He gets really upset. He's like, I'm calling down curses. He's swearing to them, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me, you know? I'm not the one you're talking about. And then this happens. Immediately, the rooster crowed the second time. Then I remembered the word Jesus had spoken to me. Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. And I broke down and wept. That's a picture of regret. I mean, that's not a bad mood. That's not a minor slip up. I mean, that is a soul-crushing moment where you realize you just did the one thing you swore you'd never do. For Peter, it was turning his back on the one who never turned his back on him. But what I love most about Peter's story isn't just that he blew it right in front of Jesus. Jesus watched Peter screw it up. I mean, that's helpful, that's relatable, I'm glad. But what's even better is Jesus gets a hold of Peter's story and reminds us you don't have to live with your regret all by yourself. There's a safe place to put it. Because the story continues. I mean, if you know the story, I mean, Peter doesn't think Jesus is coming back to life. I mean, he just walks away. Jesus is executed, he leaves. He's just carrying all that regret, all that shame. Now, like, worst weekend of my life. And I've got to live with that. I can't ever undo it. I can't relive it. He goes back to what he knows. He goes back home. He goes back to his hometown up in northern Israel. He just starts fishing again because that's what he knows, just like Jesus never shown up. But at the tail end of the worst weekend of his life, after a night of fishing where he caught nothing, some guy yells from the shore, "Why don't you try putting your net on the other side?" So they do. And it fills with fish. And in that moment, Peter realizes it's Jesus. I don't really get it yet, but apparently he's alive. I'm pretty sure I saw him dead, but now he's alive and he's right there. And he just pulled off a miracle. He doesn't even wait for the boat to get back. Peter jumps in the water, swims to the shore, runs up. Jesus is got this whole moment planned out. He's already made breakfast for everybody. I mean, it's crazy. And when Peter gets to the shore, Jesus asks him a question, the same question 3 times. Peter, do you love me? And Peter responds the same way 3 times. Yes, I love you. I mean, imagine I guess the power of that question. I mean, I think we can skim over that. But Peter, again, I mean, it's pretty fresh that he just totally turned his back on Jesus. And then Jesus shows back up and is like, yeah, but do you love me? I mean, Peter's got to say, I don't know that my yes is enough. I mean, what I just did a couple days ago. But Peter responds, yes, I love you. Yes, I love you. And then Jesus responds in a way that would be very weird for us. Like if someone just said this to us, we'd be like, are you kidding me? Jesus responds to Peter's declaration of love for him with, then feed my sheep. Now, translation of then feed my sheep. Peter, you're still mine. You still belong. And maybe most importantly, Peter, I still have work for you to do. I mean, that's Jesus exposing his heart to us. Jesus doesn't just forgive Peter, although that's cool. He employs Peter. He gives Peter a job. He invites him back into the story, into the mission of healing and restoring. He's healing and restoring Peter, and at the same time, inviting Peter to go heal and restore. Hey, Peter, I know you have a lot of regret. You don't have to carry that alone. I'll help. Now, please go do that for everyone you bump into. Make sure you're my hands and feet and mouth and ears for everybody you run into, that when you run into people that have those moments where they wish they could undo and relive, would you remind them by how you treat them that there's a safe place for their regret? That regret doesn't need to lead to more regret. It can actually lead to growth and transformation and becoming something new. I think for a lot of us, I mean, honestly, I've been a pastor a long time, and, we're always up here, hey, you better help us, or you're gonna go to hell, and, all of that, but you know what I mean? We're always up here, hey, sign up, go do this. So many of my conversations end with talking to people that really want to help. They have a heart to help, but they don't feel like they should be allowed to help because of the worst weekend of their life or the worst decade of their life. They feel disqualified, if you will. Sure, they come to church, right? Neighborhood's a great church, everybody's welcome, it's so cool, right? Feels like home, all of that, we love that. But they sit in the back, and you hear what we're talking about, and then you leave immediately, and you're just because that's all, and it's not because they don't want more. Is they just don't feel worthy of more. And I think Jesus and Peter come along, and Jesus' point is and why Peter's so passionate about including this is guys, you have to include this part in the story, because if not, people are just gonna be sitting in their regrets, sitting in the back of the church, sneaking out as fast as they can as soon as it's over, because they feel like they just don't have a place. And Peter's but they gotta know the love and grace of Jesus. There is no bottom to that. It goes on forever. You can't reach the end. We all have regret. We do. That's human. I mean, those of you, though, that sit in the back, we know you have more regret than the people that sit in the front, right? I mean, we get it. You're no, I'm sitting back here for a reason, right next to the door. I'm out of here, right? We get it. No. You are a human being if you regret a decision you made. But don't miss that doesn't have to define you, that you can actually hand it to Jesus, and you'll discover that his grace and love have no boundaries. I mean, that's the invitation for today. You're gonna be staring at the ceiling tonight, thinking about your regrets, because that's all we talked about today. I'm sorry for that. But when you do, I hope you think about Peter. He screwed up. Jesus watched him screw up. And then Jesus said, I love you. My grace is big enough for that. Let's get to work. So we can stop hiding, we can stop running, we can stop staring at the ceiling, and we can start looking at a Savior who never stopped looking at you. The grace and love of Jesus is just simply bigger than your regret. His love is stronger than your failure. His healing more beautiful than anything you could ever break. And he can take your regret, and he can reshape the narrative around it and use it. And you can either let him or not. But I don't think you should spend another night staring at the ceiling, beating yourself up because you did something you wish you could undo and relive. that's just human. Jesus invites us to move past it, to grow past it, and to heal others struggling with it. How are we doing? I mean, I know it's pretty heavy today, right? I mean, let's just remember the baptisms. Those were great. You can forget everything else I said. So, hey, so glad that you joined us today. Really, truly, I wake up every day and think I have the best job in the whole world getting to be your pastor, and I just love this community that we call neighborhood. And so, and I don't want any of you beating yourself up over regret. So I hope you'll find the love and grace of Jesus in that. If you'd like to share your story, our prayer team will be down to my left. Don't forget, we have a couple of tables out there, Neighborhood Degree, the 4 Kingsburg table, and all the questions, guests, all of you, the next lounge, pint glass, coffee mug, all that kind of stuff. So let me pray, and then we'll get out of here. Jesus, we are so grateful. We're so grateful for Peter's story. We're so grateful that guy screwed up pretty big and then told everyone about it. So grateful for that. And that he told the part where you healed him. You restored him. You showed him how big your love is. And you invited him back into your story. Jesus, we love you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.